I'll say first and foremost, community is your best asset. Always, and I think a lot of people will hear this in their career is never work upwards, but work across. Your next collaborators are going to be your friends, your colleagues, your people that you met in the field that are at the same place or just slightly maybe ahead of you, but those are the people that you really want to get to know.
Sometimes the stories we're told to hide are the very ones we're meant to share. Whether it's part of ourselves that feel too different, too unconventional, or too weird, there's often pressure to fit into a mold, especially in creative industries. But today's guest has built her career doing the exact opposite. What's going on, everyone? It's your girl, Natalie Nadeen, and you're tuned in to Noir in Media, a show where conversations and thoughts are rooted in media, culture, and the people shaping it. As an actor, writer, and emerging filmmaker, today's guest is creating work that blends horror, Caribbean folklore, family, identity, and Black queerness in ways that challenge expectations and invite deeper reflection. Without following the traditional route, she has carved out her own path, recently earning recognition through pitch competitions and film festivals. This is a conversation about embracing your unique voice, making films outside the traditional system, the power of community, and why being weird might just be the key to standing out in today's media landscape. Allow me to introduce Shanice Aisha Bowrin. Ooh. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Very honored.
When you submitted your application, I'm like, oh, this is definitely someone I want to talk to. Just your whole background, your history, your bio. I'm like, we definitely need her on the show to tell her story.
Oh my God, thank you. I had seen that you had interviewed, funny enough, someone who I also had worked with. I was an actor for one of their first films, and it was about championing, Black filmmakers. And I thought, oh, this would be such a great opportunity to just talk and inspire other filmmakers who are aspiring, and especially for Black filmmakers, because we don't get a lot of time to shine and we don't get a lot of time to talk about it. So I thought this was just a perfect opportunity for us to connect.
See, this is how you know, the socials are working, kind of sharing, letting people know that you're out there. Put your work out there if this is not teaching you anything else.
Absolutely.
So before we get into anything, definitely tell people who you are, what you do, how to support and follow you. This is your time to shine.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm Shanice. Shanice Aisha Bowrin is my full name, but just call me Shanice. I am a filmmaker. I am a writer. I'm also an actor. And I'm an audio lover. I've worked in plays, on short films. Basically, I've done almost everything at this point. But right now, I am doing short films. I did my first short, A Family Affair, which has now just finished post-production. And that was lovingly supported by the Toronto Film Plug. So definitely check those guys out because they helped executive produce and finance, as well as helped build the film that it was. And as well as we have my producer, Yemi Shinuga, which is such a talented person as well. Another Black woman who is just fierce in the game right now. And so you can follow her through her production company, Ishianu Productions, and where you'll see all of the information on the film. But yeah, I'm just a creative that is kind of a little too obsessed with horror, and I'm just trying to make some stories, y'all.
I love that you say you're obsessed with horror. This is somehow becoming a theme on the podcast. Our very first guest, she likes a little horror, a little thriller, and I'm like, you'll be watching those by yourself. I'll be watching them in the daylight, but I applaud y'all.
Thank you. Thank you. I know it's hard. It's hard. It's not for everybody.
No, but you know what? What was your introduction to horror versus the rom-com, the typical, I guess, comedy genres that people go for?
Well, the story in itself is almost like a comedy because I got it from my mom. And I am so sorry to my mom who might hear this. She might think that it looks badly on her, but it's actually fine. She was watching Jeepers. Do you remember the movie Jeepers Creepers? It was basically about a furry scarecrow. It was in the early thousands, but she was watching the sequel. She got it from Blockbuster. It's a real, what do you call it? Going back in time, that one. But she got the video from Blockbuster. I was watching it alone, and I was about 8. And I remember being really intrigued about hearing what was going on. So I snuck behind the couch to watch half of the movie with her. And then she realized, and she's like, "Okay, if you're so down to watch this, come and sit with me." I sat there 2 seconds, it got too scary. I ran out. I then came back about a half hour later, and it was so scary. Someone got decapitated. And then I screamed and ran back inside in my room. And that was my introduction to horror. It was really bad.
Expected a little bit more lighthearted. I was expecting, I sat through it. I was just like psychoanalyzing what was happening. So you ran after 2 seconds and then saw that and said, I love this.
Yeah, it was more like I was obsessed with the idea of like, why was this so terrifying to me? And like, what was like, why is this happening? And so I just became obsessed with the things that made people scared. And whenever I watched scary movies that really scared me, I would go back and I'd watch it in the day and I'd rewatch it and rewatch it almost like obsessively to just understand what is it that was so terrifying. And sort of, I think it was my way of trying to like get over or intellectualize the scary to be like, it's not that scary because XYZ. But I ended up just falling in love with the craft and how horror has such an expansive way of explaining really complex ideas.
Okay. That's a little bit better.
Yeah. So it's rocky beginning, but it evolved. It evolves.
When you really think about it, it does. I feel like it takes a lot to put yourself in that mindset, especially if these are not things you've done in real life. But it's like, how do you kind of channel the mind of this person to really commit these actions and stay committed to it?
Exactly. Exactly. Like horror is really about the human condition and about really social issues that are happening in our world. And it's sort of fantastical and sometimes a hard look at what things that are happening in our world that maybe it's a little bit harder to talk.
Well, this kind of just dived right into our first question because, as you guys can see or hear, depending on how you're listening to this episode, Shanice is a horror loving, and we said book nerd as well. You love the books?
Yes, I can go more into that if you'd like.
So we love the films, we love the books. How
Yes.
did this passion for horror turn into like your long-term career in filmmaking? Like instead of going the traditional route, you decide, let me just stick it out. And this is about to be my genre.
Yeah, it was a really roundabout way, honestly. I had always been obsessed with horror, so I've been obsessed with not just horror, but I loved stories. I loved creating stories in class. I was always the kid that got in trouble because I was busy daydreaming different story lines that I could figure out. And I ended up writing for the school newspaper when I was in high school, and it was sort of something that I just loved doing. But I never really thought about filmmaking until I got out of college and I was studying forensic psychology, so completely opposite of what I am doing now. But I realized that I had such a love for the arts and I still loved watching movies and I loved reading books and I loved the worlds that people could create in their minds. And so through a really roundabout way, I started working in the world of sound and I started working in radio and podcasting and then kind of loved how you could create again those worlds then by interviews and learning other people's worlds. And then eventually that came into acting and learning how to create your own world and be present in a character. And eventually that evolved to I love stories, but I'm not seeing the stories that I would see myself in or that I would want to see. And so, what is the antidote to that? And that is really to create those stories because those stories exist, but they just don't exist maybe in the moment, but they exist in the mind of others, in your mind. And so, they just need to be made.
See, I like that. I always talk about the whole representation factor of it all. And representation, you're proving a point, comes in many different ways. So it's not just about seeing ourselves on screen, but seeing ourselves in stories that you wouldn't typically see us in. We wouldn't be typically casted. Like, we're not going to be first on the call sheet. Maybe for a horror film, or it's going to be the stereotypical role, be the best friend that either runs away first or dies first. Which one? I don't know.
I was going to say the iconic Regina Hall in all the scary movies. Can't forget her. She's literally a final girl in herself.
I think she's the longest living Black girl in a horror film.
I think so. Yeah. I can't think of anybody else at the moment. If I do, I'll bring it up.
Exactly. And then I'm guessing you said podcasting, so I'm guessing you're one of those true crime podcast girlies.
Oh, yes. I love true crime podcasts. I love horror podcasts. So, especially like audio fiction. One that I keep telling everyone to listen to. It was produced by Monkey Paw Productions. Jordan Peele had executive produced it. It was called Quiet Part Loud. And it's basically an audio drama, almost like a teleplay. And it's basically a movie for your ears. And it was, again, talking about such a really serious topic. It was just really quickly about these kids that had gone missing and came back 15 years later and hadn't aged a day. And it kind of centers around what happened in 2001 during 9/11. But it was a really interesting take on how we approach Islamophobia, how we approach discrimination, and how hatred is sort of processed in a society.
See, things like that aren't as scary to me, but like the fact that they actually made it into kind of like this theatrical, I don't know, variation, but it's still based on the true story. I feel like I'm one of those people where I don't go searching for the true crimes, but if you're scrolling on TikTok and it hits your feed, I'm like,
Oh
I
my
can't
gosh,
scroll
yes.
until I know what happens.
And then the lady went over there and this happened. And I love those. I'm a sucker for those.
It's a rabbit hole.
Very much.
So, how did you end up in the industry? Did you actually take the traditional route? Because we always talk about if people, they go to school. Did you kind of just fall into it? And what were some key moments that convinced you that this is what you actually wanted to pursue?
Yeah, it was definitely I definitely fell into it. I definitely had a love again for stories and a love for it, but I think at the time I didn't really I was a little bit scared, I think, to get into that because Caribbean parents, you got to be a doctor, you got to be a lawyer, you got to have a high-paying job and make sure you're successful so you can take care of them when they get older. And so for me, the way that I sort of made sense of that was like, okay, how do I still involve myself in people's stories, but also become a doctor, do that kind of thing? And that's when I went into psychology. I became really interested in the human condition. But through that, I just realized that the more clinical part of being in that career field just wasn't for me. I took a gap year and just explored working in radio because I loved interviews and I loved getting to know people. And through there, I started voice acting actually first. So I would just do like traffic reports and things like ad space and those kind of things. And I had such a great time that when I came back from my gap year, I started voice acting. And that's how I kind of started in the acting world and learning a little bit more about not just voice acting, but acting for stage and theater and then acting for film eventually. And then once I had my first film, which I did a student film way back when, and I remember leaving the set being like, this is something I want to do for the rest of my life. I don't know if it's going to be this specific thing, but the being on set, being on the energy of being with people and stepping into a character, it was just something that I felt was missing for a long time. And so I realized that this was just going to be for me. And so down the line, I reconnected with writing again. I've made my worlds again and my stories again, and then getting to be behind the camera. Now I just get to do a whole other way of creating stories and being involved in learning about the human condition and how we make art, but also how we are human.
I want to go back a bit because you spoke about taking a gap year. And I feel like the gap year, when it comes to some parents, is a very like taboo topic. Like, you're not taking a gap year. Like, as soon as you're done high school, you're going to post secondary, you're going to finish that degree, then you do what you want to do. So, how important was it for you to kind of take that gap year to have these experience? And what was your mom's reaction to all of this?
Yeah, it was extremely important that I didn't think a gap year at the time. I knew that I wanted to travel and I was always obsessed. So my gap year was in London, England. I was obsessed with England for years, like since I was a kid. I just read books that were based there. I loved the accent. I just was really interested in just Europe and like the travel. And so I had seen the opportunity during my college orientation. So I did college back in Montreal. So college is a little bit different where we only do 2 to 4 years of college and then we can go to university. Um, and so I remember going to the dinner table with the pamphlet for doing a gap year in like the other side of the country, basically. And saying like, "Hey, I want to do this." And so luckily I come from a family where we have very, very powerful and well-spoken and very independent women. So this wasn't a shock or a surprise. I'm also the eldest daughter, so a lot of the things I'm like, if someone's not going to help me, I'm going to do it myself. And so I came to the table and I said, "Mom, I want to go to England. It's going to be 2 years and I'm going to find the money." And da, da, da. And she said, "Okay, just know I'm not paying for it." And I said, "Okay." And there it was.
You know what? That's fair. That's fair. Sometimes we can't have it both ways all the time. I'm gonna take the permission to go, run with it before she changes her mind.
Exactly. There was not a question. It was more of asking for forgiveness at this point. I told her I was doing this.
Tickets already booked. The flight has been scheduled. Now we're coming to you for the yes.
Absolutely. But it was a really great opportunity. And I think that I always tell, especially young people that are thinking about what they're doing and if they want to go to school, if they want to continue education, take it to gap year. I've learned so much about culture, about independence, about stories, just because I took those 2 years to really decide what I wanted to do and to explore all the things that worked and what didn't. So I'm a huge advocate for taking that time.
That's great. I think that's something that I want more people to kind of get used to because I feel like looking back, I'm like, I could have did well with a gap year just to kind of see what else was out there. I think there's just such a pressure that in high school, by the time you hit like grade 10, grade 11, you kind of need to know what you want to do because now you have to take those specific courses in order to get the grades, in order to do the applications and get into these post-secondary programs. So I do encourage gap years if you're doing something productive with it, and take that moment to find yourself like we will never have those answers right off the bat, and if you do, that's great. I know a lot of us could have benefited from it.
Absolutely. I mean, I talked to so many friends that did go straight from school to school to school and then graduated. And a lot of them do sort of miss that portion of not getting to explore what worked and what didn't. So, and also traveling when you're younger is a little bit easier, especially when your knees don't click. And now my knees click. So do it while you're young. And if you can't, do it now.
I feel seen, one with the knees clicking. I thought there's no making stallion knees over here. You drop down, it's a little hard getting up.
Yes, we do yoga, but the knees, they need a little tender loving. That's it.
They do. Them little heat lotion.
Yeah.
Just a little bit. And I do agree with you in terms of doing it now. And I feel like I'm even doing that myself, where it's like, okay, I do work full time, but when I get those vacation days, like, can
Mhm.
I solo travel somewhere? Let me try somewhere I've never been before, just to still open my mind up to new things. Cause you really don't know what's out there, especially if you're from a city like Toronto, where it's just like, okay, everything is here. We're so multicultural. Like, you don't have to go far. Yes, we do. Get out.
Yes, we do. There is no freedom like going into a town where you don't know the language and you have to just figure it out. You're gonna figure it out real fast.
Oh, I'm telling you, kids, stay in school, but also live your life, do what you gotta do. Just be safe
That's
and responsible and legal.
that's the most important part.
Yep. So you've recently won some pitch competitions and participated in some film festivals. So tell us which ones and how have those experiences meant for you at this stage of your career?
Yeah. So the first thing I actually got was the Reykjavik Film Festival. I was accepted into their director's talent lab. So this is in Reykjavik, Iceland. And it was about, I believe, 4 to 5 day workshop with about 10 other filmmakers from around the world. And we learned to develop our shorts into feature film packages and got to pitch with producers, as well as learn a little bit more about the film landscape in Europe. And it was such a great opportunity. It was a really great way to get out of the country and get to see what filmmakers are doing outside of just, Toronto. Not only that, but the filmmakers outside of Canada and outside of North America and seeing how sort of they operate and how they approach stories. Um, and it was a really great way of getting to learn sort of how to bring those skills to your own craft. So that actually ended up helping me because right after I got the Toronto Film Plug pitch competition. And that was a pitch to pitch my short film, A Family Affair, with two other finalists into a crowd of people, which got to vote on who got the best pitch. And they would get funding as well as in kind resources to make the film. And so if it wasn't for the lab, I wouldn't have known how to make the pitch the best that I could have made it at that time, and also to give me the confidence as well, because it's not just about the material and, like, the knowledge, but it's also getting the confidence, getting your story out there and being able to practice it enough times in front of an audience so that you know the story enough that when you're out there again, you're comfortable. And so all those things kinda came together in a perfect way of, like, being able to bring me in a place where not only was I more knowledgeable about storytelling and directing and how to present my ideas, but also made me stronger in how to tell my story and how to be comfortable.
And when it comes to the programs, how did you come across these programs? Because one, the fact that you said that was in, you said Ireland?
Iceland.
Iceland. Okay. The fact that you found a program in Iceland, how did you do this research? So it's a plug, but it's not a plug, but it's a plug. So even for myself, I work at Real World and we have year-round programs. And I hear the impact stories from the alumni of finding these programs and what it's done for their careers. But there's some people who don't even know that these programs exist. And the fact that it's for all stages, all different career types, whether you're emerging, mid-level. So how did you find this and how would you tell someone about, I guess, the application process? What should they prepare for?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I'll say first and foremost, community is your best asset. Always, and I think a lot of people will hear this in their career is never work upwards, but work across. Your next collaborators are going to be your friends, your colleagues, your people that you met in the field that are at the same place or just slightly maybe ahead of you. But those are the people that you really want to get to know. And it was through talking through some of my friends who are a little bit more ahead in the filmmaking game than I was that had done a couple of labs. And so I had asked them, like, what were some of the labs that maybe they had done? And so one of them that a lot of them had gone through was the Iceland one. And it was something that I didn't even know about before. So I looked it up and I saw that they accepted people from Canada, especially, as well as other parts of the world. And so that's sort of how I found it. The application process was fairly easy, actually. It was a few essay questions, but it's again knowing your story and knowing what who you are as a filmmaker. So, what are the types of themes that you want to showcase in your work? What kind of storyteller are you? What do you hope to achieve with your stories? Like, what is your goal, and who is the audience you want to reach with that? Are really important things to know, not just for applications, but also just in general when you pitch. Pitch is really strong, not just because of an idea and not just because of the talent, but it's that a filmmaker knows who they are and they know their story and they know what they want to do with that story. And those are really the things like you want to trust that someone who is going to give you funding or give you the assets or the skills to be able to go to the next level with your story, that you know what you're doing. And sometimes it is scary because it's you're talking to people that maybe are at a different level and you're like, I don't know, but like you made that story, so you know that story. So just own it and like just keep practicing till you got.
That's the best, I think, piece of advice right there. One, to network across. And I feel like a lot of people don't ever consider that. Everyone wants to go, okay, how do I get up the ladder? Who's next? Who's up on like the food chain? But no, you're completely right. Like these are the people beside you are the next managers, the next directors, the next CEOs. Get to know them now. And it's not like, oh, I'm gonna just keep them in my back pocket. But like nurture those relationships, foster that communication and just naturally develop those relationships. So when that time comes or when you have those questions that need to be asked, like it will be a genuine connection already there and they're willing to share that information with you.
Exactly. And like there are obviously exceptions to the rule where someone might be friends with a festival director or someone who's an executive director. And I'm not saying that those are bad things. Those are all really great resources, but it's definitely art is a collaborative force and filmmaking is a collaborative project. So let's make friends and make movies with our friends. The whole goal in this life is to create art or to create. And so why not do that with people that you actually enjoy talking to and are in your corner? And those are the people that are going to believe in you because they already seen you coming up because they're working alongside you.
Now, you're talking about creating films with your friends and you're talking about your latest project, A Family Affair?
Mhm.
Perfect. What did that experience teach you in terms of making this film? And how did you fund for this film? So was it through winning these competitions? Was it through grants? And what did that experience teach you?
Yeah, a lot of it came from really the Toronto Film Plug. So a lot of like the film competition, as well as we got favors. Some people gave some donations, but a lot of it was just asking for favors. Making film is expensive, not gonna lie, and a lot of people probably know that making film is an expensive endeavor, but never underestimate the value of a favor. Some people who really believe in your idea will maybe not have the funds, but can donate food or can donate their time or can donate a skill if they have one that is pertinent to your vision. But don't be afraid to ask. Especially as a filmmaker and as an indie filmmaker, you're going to have to ask people for things a lot. So don't be afraid to ask, and just always make sure to thank them after, because people are really putting like their everything into making your visions work. So I think from that I've just learned, like, always say thank you, always ask, because you never know what the answer is going to be. The worst they can say is no, but usually it's probably a maybe not right now, or yeah, I think I can do XYZ.
Don't be afraid to ask. I feel like that's something I had to kind of get into more even as an adult, cuz I always feel like, okay, I don't want to ask if I don't know, I'm just figuring out myself, and it's actually more stressful that way half the time. Versus like you said, the worst they can say is no, but most times they will either say yes or they'll find kind of like a halfway point to meet you at. And I think
Exactly.
that's the fear we have to overcome.
Exactly, and I don't know about you, but I am a immigrant eldest daughter, second immigrant eldest daughter, so usually "I'll do it" is my go-to. You gotta leave that. You gotta like, when I directed a family affair, there was so much that I just didn't know, and that was a good thing. As a director, you wanna be the one that knows the least amount, and trust that your team will support you because they will be the experts in their fields, and trust them in helping your vision. And so I had to let go of a lot, and that was not something I was used to, but it all came together really well.
It's that hyper I always say there's 2 things. It's hyper independence, and
Yep.
like you said, either being the eldest or the only child. Yeah. We have some things that we need to, like, heal from just a little bit.
Just a little bit,
A little
just
bit.
lovingly need to heal, but it's so much easier when you just learn that you don't have to do everything.
Don't. So reading your bio, one thing that got me is that your weird is your secret sauce. So when did you realize that the stories that felt the most personal were actually the ones people connected with the most?
I learned it pretty early on, I would say. In specifics to a family affair, what spurred the idea of it was it's a story about family redemption as well as family trauma, family hierarchies, especially between a daughter and a son, and an eldest daughter and a youngest son. And so it started really by talking to people about eldest daughter syndrome, and like how being either the only girl in the family or the eldest girl in the family was just a different experience than any other people would have, and is a specific experience. And it kind of made me not quite sad, but it really opened my eyes how common it was. When I started talking about it more, so many people came up to me and were telling me like, "Yep, I have had this exact same experience. This is just like my family. I am the one who was in charge of holding it all together even though I'm not together." And it was just this communal experience of sort of a loss of childhood and a bit of like a resentment or a feeling of complication when it came to family. And so I realized that this was something that a lot of people felt. And thank goodness I talked about it, because people don't usually. And so I wanted to make a story about this because this was something that people are maybe not really wanting to talk about, because it's scary to admit that the people that love us and raise us can also harm us. And how do you heal from that? And how do you get over that and not bring that harm into your relationships with your own siblings, with your own kids eventually, or your partners?
That is such like a complex, in a sense, topic and theme. And the fact that you said like the oldest daughter and the youngest son, I'm just picturing that right now because that's something that you always kind of see play out. And especially in like, Caribbean households, African households. I think in a lot, sometimes it's mostly like a cultural thing and it happens in other, races and countries as well. But it's just the thing that there's always come that hierarchy that no one really wants to acknowledge, but you do feel it.
Yep. And that's the thing, is that we do talk about these topics like feminism and the patriarchy, but it's a lot harder to talk about how that plays in our own families and how our own caregivers had done the same thing. And sometimes how we might have done the same thing. It's a really hard thing to have to admit or even have to talk about, because it's uncomfortable. It's uncomfortable to say like, "Well, yeah, maybe the sibling got a little bit of a better treatment than I did," or that kind of thing. And also the feeling of feeling that guilt or resentment or whatever negative feeling that comes around it. It's a complicated thing to talk about. And so I think film is such a great way in showcasing that and being able to create conversation, and conversation is always the starting point to healing in my book, is that when we talk about it and we bring it out into the world and we bring it into the space, that's the first step in tackling how do we confront this and how do we move forward and work together so that we can get over this.
Was there a particular moment or scenario that kind of drew you to these themes as a storyteller? Because these are very deep, but something that, again, is almost hidden, like tucked under the rug. It's under the covers. It's taboo. We never want to address it. But you seem to be tackling these things head on.
Yeah, this was actually a story I told at the pitch competition. And again, mom, cover your ears if she is listening. But I remember a specific family trip. I had brought my life partner with me, and this was the first time they were meeting my family. And it didn't go particularly great. Um, but what was notable was a family member had pulled me aside and basically chewed me out, not because I had done something wrong, but because I wasn't taking the opportunity to be a mentor to the younger kids, and I wasn't taking the opportunity to clean around the house. I was not asked to do any of these things, but it was expected that I was supposed to do all those things while I was on vacation. And this was after a particularly hard time in my life as well. And it was just, the conversation was like, well, your youngest brother is going through something right now. And I was like, so am I. But no one wanted to check in on me. And then I was expected to still clean, cook for everybody, and do all of that stuff. Um, and so that frustration, well, I will actually be honest, I wasn't even frustrated at first. My first reaction was to go, yeah, you're right. I am bad. I didn't do my due diligence. And then it was a little bit after with more thinking that I realized, like, no, this is not the healthiest response. I think we need to dig deeper here, because this is not okay. It's not okay that maybe one person is suffering and the other person is suffering, but only one person is getting addressed. That's just not equal. And it's just not a fair game. And it was something that I realized that I had experienced for a lot of my life. And the more I talked about it, the more it was, again, more people have felt the exact same way or had the exact same experience. And so I realized that there was just no way I could not talk about this.
It kind of shows you how much our mind is conditioned with these so-called traditional values. Also, how the male child is definitely kind of put on a pedestal and more prioritized. But the fact that you said you were struggling, you were going through your own thing at the time, and no one went to see, like, hey, are you okay? At least ask you, can you help with this? Ask your brother, can he help with this? Figure out where you're at. And I like the fact that you were actually able to notice that for yourself, because, again, because it's just so custom and it's just passed down generation to generation, we don't typically always know that this is a negative thing. We're not always quick to spot it. And it's the whole thing too of respecting your elders.
Yes.
So we're not supposed to talk back. They tell us to do something, you do it. Actually, don't even wait for them to tell you. Just get up and do it before they have to ask.
Exactly. And that's why as well I needed to tell this story, because it was specific to the Black experience, to the immigrant experience. That adds another layer of the fact that you're in this country that you are settled in, and that is foreign to your family, that is not their home country. And so it's an added layer of, we need to have these values to keep ourselves accountable and keep ourselves okay during this turbulent time of being in a country that maybe we don't feel welcome in, or in a country that is just not what we're used to.
Oh, I need to, like, take time, explore some more of your work. When this film is done, send it to me, because I love the fact that you are pretty much not afraid to touch on these themes. You know, sorry, mom, it might hurt somewhere, but these are the stories that need to be told, because there's so much, I like, if it's first generations, like Canadians, like the children of immigrant parents who have experienced this. And it's just like, you know what? Someone needs to tell our truth. Someone's able to tell our stories in a respectful way, but in a way that opens our eyes to be like, we got to change something. something in this cycle, it needs to break and we need to start fresh. We need to start new and be like, we don't need to continue these same patterns anymore.
Exactly. And I think in a lot of our families, if there is a problem, the instinct is to not talk about it, to bury it. And I think really confrontation, or not even confrontation, but addressing those conflicts is an act of love. I'm confronting this because I want to have a better relationship with you. I'm confronting this because I want to feel better about being here with you. That is love personified. And so I hope that when people do see that, and the aunties and moms that do see this and think like, "Oh, are you telling me I'm bad or I'm not being a good, elder?" No, that is not at all what I am saying. All I am saying is that there are harmful patterns that our parents and grandparents and even we sometimes can be susceptible to, but it's deciding to be different, deciding to choose different. That is love. And so we have to confront that. We have to do something different so that we can be better for our kids and our grandkids and for the future generations that won't have to get to know this feeling.
Like what you said with in terms of we're doing this out of love and to strengthen the relationship, because oftentimes people tend to kind of just take offense to it and think you're being disrespectful, you're being rude, oh, you're calling us out. No. This is what's, like you said, this helps the foundation, this strengthens the foundation, and we are making it better for future generations. I like when I watch sometimes, the social medias, the TikToks, and the people are doing TikToks with their parents or their grandparents. And there you have some parents who will never touch social media. And it's like, but look when you open yourself up to something new. Look when you take away that thought of what are people going to say and you just live your life the way you want to live. Look how many opportunities in that sense of freedom it opens up for you.
It is. It's incredibly freeing, and it will open up a way of connecting with your parent or connecting with someone that you maybe never have thought about.
Yeah. Another theme that you mentioned that you touch on is Black queerness, and especially in a nuanced way. Why is this also important for you to share, and how you see it reflected on screen?
This was a little bit more interesting. So I myself am queer. I'm a late stage queer, as I like to call myself. It was a little bit later in life, and it was another thing about representation. There is some queer representation, definitely not enough. Always need more, especially Black queer representation. But the fact that queerness is such a spectrum and has so many different beautiful perspectives. And I think that queerness is different in so many ways. There's not just one way to be queer. And I really wanted it to do it in the quiet ways of like unrequited love and, you know, being yourself, but not quite saying, "Hey, I'm out and proud, but this is who I am." It was just exploring sort of like different ways of being queer that maybe hasn't been showcased before, as well as how does that intersect with Blackness? Because the thing is that Blackness is one thing, but then being queer is a whole other, and the intersection is a completely other experience. And so that is such a varied experience that I really wanted to bring true to how I felt being queer, which was for me, I didn't know I was queer until I realized like, oh wait, yeah, I think my female friendships are a little too intense, and I'm definitely different in certain ways, but I wanted to just show sort of my way of how I was queer, which was a little bit more quieter and maybe a little bit just more nuanced in that way.
Well, what's something that people don't realize about being an independent filmmaker, but being Black and queer? Because I feel like we always touch on, okay, like, the struggles of a Black woman, of a Black male, but then now you've added this extra layer, which for some people could be great, and for others it presents more challenges.
I think definitely for being Black and queer and an indie filmmaker, sometimes it's a little hard for people to take you seriously, especially if you are in a femme presenting body or are just in a either non-binary presenting body. Um, it's just sometimes people are just a little bit more not as understanding to understanding your experience, but it's also that we don't have a lot of examples, unfortunately, because of the way our world has worked so far. And so I think people still are not investing as much money as they can. I mean, we've had amazing things like Moonlight, Watermelon Woman, like, and things along the line, but it's very few and far in between. And so more and queer stories should be invested in. We should be putting more money into that sort of thing. I'm trying my best not to go on a tangent and like ramble away, but
Feel free if you need to.
thank you. But essentially, like being a queer filmmaker is making stories that feel true to you. And I think for a lot of queer filmmakers that I have spoken to, a lot of the stories that do get picked up, or a lot of the stories that get a lot of attention, are stories of strife, of struggle. And those do have a place and are important. But we want to see as well Black queer love, Black queer silliness and whimsy. We want to see Black queer joy. We want to see the other assets and faces that is Black queer life and just Black life in general. There is so much more than our struggles, and I think that as an indie filmmaker, sometimes it's hard to get those stories out there. But I see so many talented people doing stuff on YouTube and like making reels and doing little skits, and that's their way of how they are getting those stories out there. And I just hope that people put their money where their mouth is and invest in those stories because those are really important.
Now, when we think about investing in these stories, I also think about creating a safe space or creating a community. How can people contribute to building these kind of spaces and having their stories told and shared?
The power of social media is a great way of creating community. I've seen so many great people who I'll take an example of, this is not the best example, but the example of Obsession. Like people have taken that movie and created their own skits based on the film and created sort of a cult following about it. Do the same with your favorite movies. Make a letterbox and talk about how much you love this movie. Make a podcast and talk about these kind of stories that you want to hear and talk to the filmmakers if you can. I am definitely one of those people that if I see a movie I love, I'll find out who the director is. And if they're a local director, I'll just DM them and be like, hey, this was really great. But just talking about those things that excite us, like those films that excite us and make us feel something, and going to the theater or going to that screening and bringing that money in to show that the decision makers that we want to see these films, because those guys respond to numbers. And so when we come out in droves, when we talk about it online, when we make skits about it, or we make a Substack little article about it, or we just talk to our friends about it, and we go to see those movies, that's what they respond to, and that's what gives them the data to say, okay, you know what, maybe we're going to make more of these, or we're going to invest in more of these. A great example is Heated Rivalry. Like that was a queer story that people invested in and had such a cult following from it, and people loved it so much that now they're ready on season 2. Let's do that for Black queer folks too. Let's talk about it. Let's like make fun with it, and like let's create a friendship with it, and like just invest in it and go see it. Definitely go and see those movies. Go to the theaters. Theaters is such a lost art. So if you can, go to the theaters, go to the screening.
Definitely, definitely support. I have to be biased. Go to the screenings, go out to your local film festivals. It doesn't matter where it is. Get a ticket, get your popcorn. It's a good night out with your friends, with your family. If it's a
Exactly.
solo date,
Love a solo date.
yes. Like these are the things we need to do. And Letterbox is something that actually just got put onto like 2 months ago. Can you just dive in a little bit deeper for the people who might not know about that platform?
Yes, I recently learned about the platform and it is fantastic. It's almost, I like to call it as Twitter for film lovers, but basically what it is it's a review site for every film you can possibly think of. So they have the film, they'll have where it's streaming, who's the filmmaker, who is the crew, who is the cast, and then people get to put in their own takes and ratings on how they think of the film. And it's actually a really great way for indie filmmakers to get to know their audience, because people who are commenting, and if you have your film on there, you can talk to those people directly and say, hey, this is actually how we did this thing, da 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 da. It's a really great way just to get a direct connection to your audience and know what they're responding to, what they like. And it's also a really great platform because it keeps a collation of all of your films. So if you are an indie filmmaker and you've done several films, it'll keep your information. And so people get to learn about you. If they see your film, they can click on your name and they get to see all your information, as well as where some of your things are streaming, if they're streaming anywhere. And it's just a really great way of creating, again, community through film. Also, Letterboxd got jokes, like Twitter like jokes, and some people got some really funny takes. So I would sometimes go on Letterboxd just for the jokes. So if y'all are not busy on a Friday night, just go on Letterboxd. It's hilarious.
Okay, I need to definitely dive in more. I do like a good Twitter. I do like a good just scroll. I'm not like really a tweeting kind of person. I just like to retweet and go about my business. But I do like this and just reading like the commentaries, the thoughts, the opinions. And this is the thing, like social media, we have so much access at our fingertips right now where we kind of need to really not study it, but really just pay attention to it, figure out how you can use it and leverage it. There's no reason why people shouldn't know you, whether you have 50 followers or 5,000 followers. Like, definitely just put yourself out there, like you said. Go to the screenings, follow on social media, talk about it on social media, create that content. The word of mouth is still so powerful. And word of mouth doesn't need to be me talking to you on the street, but just me using my own platform to voice my opinion and my support for the filmmaker or for the film. So, like you said, the more that we do that, hopefully down the line, any projects get that same level, like a heated rivalry, but for other races and for other demographics and groups of people.
Exactly, exactly that. And it's also just a great way to connect with people on film. I love going on there and just joking around or just watching people. I'm definitely also not a tweeter. When I used to have Twitter, now X, I never tweeted. I always read people's tweets. And so, same with Letterbox. I don't write anything, I just read everything. And it's hilarious. It's so fun. And even if there's people that have takes that you don't agree with, it's a great place to debate if you love to debate.
And I love a good debate. Be like, okay, why do you feel this way? Now I need to watch it for myself just to see that one person's point of view who's probably like against everybody else. Whether you're a troll or not, I'm intrigued.
Exactly. Gotta love the discourse.
So, with a family affair in post productions, and the momentum that's building for you around your work, what's exciting you most about this next chapter?
Yeah, I would say what's exciting me most is, well, seeing the final pieces coming together and seeing sort of what was imagined in my head coming to life. That's as like a internal thought, but as externally is that I'm really excited to see how people connect with it. I'm excited for people that are going to love it. I'm actually kind of excited for people that are going to hate it because I want to hear what they don't like about it so that I can kind of just find out like, okay, why didn't you not like it? I'm a bit of a debater. I'm a Sagittarius, so that means I love to argue and but constructively. Don't come in here in my mentions giving me hate, please. I am still a soft girl. But yeah, I'm really excited to see how people resonate with it. And I'm excited to see what conversations come out of it. And my biggest goal is that I hope that this inspires people to get to talk to their own families about their family issues and hopefully come to a reconciliation.
I love the fact that you're willing to take the hate with the love. And I feel like a lot of people never mention that. I want people to love the film. Like, go in, please watch it. If you hate it, like, don't tell me. No, you got to see both sides because, like you said, it could be just for fun, shits and giggles. Hey, tell me why you didn't like it. But at the same time, sometimes that critique helps you develop your skills, make you into even better filmmaker for your next project.
Exactly. Everything is you take with a grain of salt, but it's also a great lesson. So why not? I'm open to it. Just be nice. Please be nice.
So you have to make sure that when you get into these festivals, definitely send us all the information so we can share with our audience, so we can pull up and support you.
Yes, please. Yes, 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 please.
So we're coming to almost the end of the episode. This has been such a great conversation so far.
Yeah, thank you. This has been great.
So I want to know, at the core of your work, what do you hope people, the audience, whether they're listening or watching your stories, what do you hope that they take away from you?
Think with my work, I want people to take away that everyone has a story and that people are not just stories, but that they have worlds inside of them and they're all valid and that they are worth talking about. And I want people to feel empowered with their stories and to be able to come out with those stories and to talk about those things. Everyone has the thing that they're passionate about, or multiple things that they're passionate about in terms of social justice, in terms of different issues, or even just topics that they're obsessed with, like horror. And I think they all have a place. So I want people with my work to feel inspired, whether that's inspired to have a conversation, inspired to create their own art, or inspired just to think a different way. That's my goal here, is that I want to inspire people to live their lives authentically and to tell their stories.
It's giving mic drop.
Trying.
I like I said, it's the representation, but to remember that representation comes in all forms. It's not just about seeing yourself on screen, like, oh, I can see myself in that person just physically, but in the different genres, the characteristics, all the layers that made that person, that made that project, that project. And I think you definitely helped shine a light on that today, where I can be Black, I can be female, I can be queer, I can be straight, I can love comedy, I can also love horror. We fit anywhere as
Yeah,
long as passion and the love is there for it.
exactly. Like, I'm definitely not a big believer of boxes. Like, you don't have a box. Humans are complex. So let's celebrate that.
You don't have to stay in one lane. Explore. If you started in film and you want to go to television, do that. If you were a voice actor, but now you want to be a producer, do that. It's okay.
Exactly. We live one life. Why not do everything we've ever wanted to do?
Period. Facts. Shanice, you have been absolutely amazing today. Oh my gosh, such a great conversation.
Natalie, you have been amazing. You are such a great interviewer, and I love what you're doing with your podcast and showcasing these voices. So thank you again for having me. And obviously, I'm going to be listening to everything you do, but I just hope that people listening invest in her too, because this is what's needed. We need people that are bringing these voices to the forefront.
I'm gonna just clip that for myself. This will be my alarm. This right here.
It's
Before
important.
it is. Before we go, I definitely want you to just reshare how people can follow you, support you. How can we find the next project, girl?
Absolutely. So I am on social media, sparingly, but I am on social media. You can follow me at Shanice Bowrin. For anything that comes with a family affair, please follow my producer's production account. That's Ishe Anyu. So that's ISEAANU Productions. And on social media, as well as Toronto Film Plug, they'll be sharing everything when it comes to a family affair. If you resonated with anything in the podcast, send me a DM. I am friendly. I'll say hello. So yeah. And yeah, just hit me up on Instagram. I'm out here.
I love that. And you guys make sure that you leave a rating, leave a thumbs up. Tell us what you thought about this episode, because we clearly dropped some gems for y'all. Make sure to follow Noir in Media on all social platforms. That includes Twitter. No, I lied. That does not include Twitter. That includes Threads, Instagram, TikTok. That's what I was trying to remember. There was a T somewhere there. Make sure you check out the website, noirinmedia.com, where you'll see everything Shanice and her guest profile, as long as all my other past episodes and guests. You can hit me up on my personal socials at Natalie Nadeen, and that's across all the boards. That actually includes Twitter. And we'll see you guys in the next episode. Bye.